Captain Elena Rodriguez sat in her command chair, drinking her third cup of coffee that morning. The Deep Space Monitoring Station Cerberus floated quietly at the edge of human space, far from Earth and far from anywhere important. Most days were boring. Her crew of 12 spent their time watching empty space and listening to radio signals from distant stars. Elena liked the quiet. After 15 years in the military, she was happy to have a peaceful job. The war with the Centauri rebels had ended 3 years ago, and humanity was finally making friends with other alien races. The galaxy seemed like a safer place now. "Captain, I'm getting something strange," said Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. He was young, maybe 25, with dark hair and serious eyes. "It's not coming from human space." Elena put down her coffee and walked over to his station. The screen showed waves of radio signals coming from somewhere far away. "What kind of signal?" "It's alien, but I think it's a distress call. The computer is trying to translate it now." Torres adjusted his headphones and frowned. "Captain, this doesn't sound good." The main screen flickered and words appeared in English. The translation was rough, but Elena could understand it. Her blood went cold as she read the message. "Emergency, emergency. This is Cathera homeworld. Ships of metal death have come. Our children are dying. Please, anyone who hears this message. The hegemony has arrived. We cannot fight them. Our crystal cities are breaking. Our people are screaming. Help us, please help us." The message repeated several times, then went silent. Elena stared at the screen. She knew about the Cathera. They were one of the first alien races that humans had met peacefully. The Cathera looked like living crystals, beautiful and delicate. They were artists and musicians, not fighters. Their whole world was covered in crystal cities that sang in the wind. "Where did this come from?" Elena asked. Torres worked at his computer. "The Cathera home system. 3 jumps from here." He looked up at her with worried eyes. "Captain, if the Void Hegemony is attacking them." Elena knew about the Void Hegemony too. They were bad news. The Hegemony was an empire of alien races that conquered other worlds and made slaves of the people they captured. They had powerful ships and no mercy. Most of the galaxy was afraid of them. "Get me Admiral Chen at Earth Command," Elena ordered. Priority 1. While Torres worked on the communication link, Elena called her senior officers to the bridge. Commander Park arrived first. She was Elena's second in command, a tough woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Chief Engineer Williams came next, wiping oil from his hands. The others followed quickly. "We have a problem," Elena told them. She played the distress call again. Commander Park shook her head sadly. "The poor bastards. The Cathera are pacifists. They don't even have weapons." "What's our status?" Elena asked Williams. The chief engineer scratched his beard. "The station is running fine, but we're not a warship, Captain. We have some defense systems, but nothing that could fight the hegemony." Torres looked up from his station. "Captain, I have Admiral Chen." The main screen changed to show Admiral Marcus Chen, a stern man with silver hair and dark eyes. Elena had served under him during the Centauri War. He was a good leader and a smart fighter. "Elena, what's the emergency?" Chen asked. Elena sent him the recording of the distress call. She watched his face change as he listened to it. His jaw got tight and his eyes went hard. "When did you receive this?" Chen asked. 10 minutes ago, sir. We're tracking the signal now." Chen was quiet for a moment. "Elena, I want you to gather all the intelligence you can about the situation. Use our spy satellites, our listening posts, everything. I need to know what's happening in that system." "Yes, sir. What about the Galactic Council?" "Shouldn't we tell them?" Chen made a bitter sound. "The Council will want to talk and make committees and hold meetings. The Cathera will be dead by then." He leaned forward. "Elena, I'm sending you some help. The destroyer Vigilant is 2 days away. Captain Morrison will be in command of the local response. What should we do until then? Watch and listen. If any Cathera ships escape, help them. But don't take any big risks. We need information more than heroes right now." The communication ended. Elena looked at her crew. They all had the same expression, angry and worried. "You heard the Admiral," Elena said. "Torres, I want you monitoring all frequencies. Park, work with intelligence to get our spy satellites pointed at the Cathera system. Williams, make sure all our systems are running perfectly. If refugees show up, we need to be ready to help them." The next few hours were tense. The spy satellites took time to move into position, but when they did, the pictures they sent back were horrible. Elena and her crew watched on the main screen as hegemony warships moved around the Kythera homeworld, like sharks around wounded prey. The hegemony ships were huge and black, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like space monsters made of metal and hate. The Kythera had nothing that could fight them. Their ships were small and beautiful, made for exploring and trading, not war. Elena watched as the hegemony ships fired their weapons at the crystal cities on the planet below. The cities that had stood for thousands of years were breaking apart like glass. She could see explosions and fires spreading across the beautiful world. "My God," whispered Commander Park. "They're not just conquering the planet, they're destroying it." Torres was listening to radio signals from the battle. "Captain, I'm picking up more distress calls. Kythera ships are trying to escape, but the hegemony is hunting them down." Elena made a decision. "Williams, warm up our engines. Park, prepare the cargo bays for refugees. Torres, broadcast on all Kythera frequencies. Tell any ships that can hear us where we are." "Captain," Park said carefully. Admiral Chen said not to take big risks. Elena looked at the screen, where another crystal city was breaking apart under enemy fire. "Those are people dying down there, Commander. Real people with families and children. If we can save even a few of them, we have to try." The crew worked quickly. Elena knew they were taking a chance. If hegemony ships followed the refugees to their station, they would all die. But she couldn't just watch and do nothing. 2 hours later, their sensors picked up a small ship approaching fast. It was Kythera design, damaged and leaking air. Torres opened a communication channel. The voice that came through was weak and full of pain. "Please. We are dying. Our world is gone. The metal death ships killed everyone. Please help us." Elena felt tears in her eyes. She had seen war before, but this was different. This was the murder of an entire peaceful people. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Monitoring Station Cerberus. We will help you. Follow our beacon to the docking bay." The Kythera ship limped into their station. When Elena and her medical team opened the airlock, they found 12 Kythera inside. The aliens looked like walking crystals, but now their beautiful forms were cracked and broken. 3 of them were children. One of the adult Kythera, speaking in broken English, told Elena what had happened. The hegemony had demanded surrender. When the Kythera leaders tried to negotiate, the enemy ships had started bombing the cities. There was no warning, no mercy. They were killing everyone they could find and taking the survivors as slaves. Elena helped the refugees to the medical bay. As she watched her doctor treat their injuries, she felt something growing inside her chest. It was an old feeling, one she remembered from the war. It was anger, cold and hard and deadly. The Kythera were innocent. They had never hurt anyone. They made art and music and tried to make the galaxy a more beautiful place. And now they were being murdered by monsters who wanted to steal their world. Elena walked back to the bridge and looked at the screen showing the destruction of the Kythera homeworld. She thought about Earth, about her own home and family. She thought about what humans had learned in their long, bloody history. "Torres," she said quietly, "send a message to Admiral Chen. Tell him we have refugees and detailed intelligence about the hegemony attack. And tell him," she paused, then continued in a voice like iron, "tell him that humanity needs to respond to this. The galaxy is watching to see what we'll do." Elena knew that this was bigger than one small monitoring station. This was about what kind of people humans were, and what kind of galaxy they wanted to live in. The hegemony had made a mistake. They thought they could commit genocide and nobody would stop them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The message from Captain Rodriguez reached Earth Command at 0347 hours, Earth Standard Time. Admiral Chen was still awake, sitting in his office and staring at intelligence reports. He had been expecting bad news, but the details from the Cerberus station were worse than he had imagined. Chen read the report 3 times. 12 survivors out of millions. Crystal cities turned to dust. Children used as slave labor. The Kythera homeworld was dying, and the Void hegemony was celebrating their victory. The Admiral stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the lights of New Geneva, where the Earth government met. It was early morning, but he knew the President would want to hear about this immediately. Chen picked up his secure phone and made the call. President Sarah Kim arrived at the emergency meeting looking tired but alert. She was a small woman with intelligent eyes and gray hair. She had been president for 2 years and Chen respected her. She made hard decisions when she had to. Show me everything, Kim said. Chen played the recordings from Captain Rodriguez. He showed her the pictures from their spy satellites. He read her the reports from the Cathera refugees. The president's face got harder with each piece of evidence. How many Cathera are left? She asked. We don't know exactly. Maybe a few thousand scattered across the galaxy. The hegemony took some as slaves, but they killed most of them. President Kim was quiet for a long time. Chen could see her thinking, weighing options in her mind. Finally, she spoke. Admiral, in your professional opinion, what should we do? Chen had been preparing for this question. Madam President, the Galactic Council will want us to file a formal complaint and wait for their investigation. That could take years. By then, the hegemony will have moved on to their next target. And if we act alone? We go to war, Madam President. Full war. Against an empire that controls dozens of star systems. We'll be outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting far from home. Kim nodded slowly. What are our chances? Unknown. The hegemony has never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of. But they have bigger ships and more of them. The president stood up and walked to the same window Chen had been looking through earlier. Dawn was breaking over Earth, painting the sky pink and gold. Marcus, I need to ask you something personal. Do you have children? 2 daughters, Madam President. Both grown up now. I have 3 grandchildren. Kim turned back to face him. When I think about what happened to those Cathera children. Marcus, we cannot let this stand. We cannot let the galaxy think that genocide is acceptable. Chen felt something loosen in his chest. What are your orders, Madam President? Mobilize everything we have. I want every ship, every soldier, every weapon we can get. I don't care if it's military, corporate, or private. We're going to war. Within 1 hour, emergency alerts went out across all of human space. The message was simple. Humanity was mobilizing for war against the void hegemony. All ships, all personnel, all resources were needed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On Mars, the corporate mining fleets began retrofitting their ships with weapons. Giant ore haulers designed to survive asteroid impacts were turned into mobile fortresses. Mining lasers that could cut through solid rock became ship-killing weapons. From the outer colonies, exploration ships and research vessels answered the call. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock to turn their peaceful ships into tools of war. If they couldn't fight directly, they could carry supplies and rescue survivors. The military response was even more impressive. Every human warship, from massive battleships to tiny patrol boats, began moving toward the gathering point at Proxima Station. Soldiers on leave were called back to duty. Reserves were activated. Training programs were cut short to get more fighters into space. But the most surprising response came from ordinary people. Captain Lisa Park had been commanding a small freight hauler called the Lucky Strike when the mobilization order came through. She was carrying medical supplies to a colony world, planning to retire after this last run. She was 50 years old, tired and ready for a quiet life. Instead, she changed course for Proxima Station. This is Captain Park of the freight hauler Lucky Strike, she transmitted to Earth Command. I'm volunteering for military service. My ship isn't much, but I can fight. The response came from Admiral Chen himself. Captain Park, we need every ship we can get. Report to Proxima Station for weapons installation. Park wasn't alone. Across human space, thousands of civilian captains were making the same decision. Traders, smugglers, passenger haulers, even luxury yachts, they all came. Some ships were old and slow. Some were barely spaceworthy. But their captains all said the same thing. We can fight. The alien governments watched humanity's mobilization with confusion and fear. The Centauri Republic, which had fought a war with humans just 3 years ago, sent a message offering support. The Arcturus Trade Federation offered to sell weapons and supplies. Even some member races of the Galactic Council quietly sent messages of encouragement. But the void hegemony was not worried. Their intelligence reports described humans as a young, primitive species with crude technology. Their ships were small and simple compared to hegemony vessels. Their tactics were straightforward and predictable. Hegemon Vralthak, the supreme leader of the hegemony, read the reports about human mobilization and laughed. Let them come, he told his war council. We will crush them like we crushed the Crystal Singers. The galaxy will learn that defying the hegemony means death. The hegemony had conquered 47 species in the last 2 centuries. They had perfected the art of intimidation and overwhelming force. Their ships were massive, their weapons powerful, their soldiers fearless. They had never lost a major battle, They did not understand what they were about to face. At Proxima Station, the largest military gathering in human history was taking shape. Admiral Chen stood on the command deck of his flagship, the battleship Indomitable, and watched ships arrive every hour. Warships took positions in formation while civilian vessels clustered around supply depots and repair stations. The sight was incredible. There were hundreds of ships of every size and type. Sleek naval destroyers floated next to battered mining barges. Corporate security vessels shared space with converted passenger liners. Some ships looked like they belonged in museums. Others were so new they still smelled of fresh metal. "Admiral," said Commander Torres, who had been transferred from Captain Rodriguez's station to serve as Chen's communications officer. "We have President Kim on the secure channel." The president's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her, Chen could see the emergency session of the Earth Parliament. Representatives from every human nation and colony were gathered, their faces grim but determined. "Admiral Chen," the president said formally, "the Parliament has voted unanimously to authorize military action against the Void hegemony. You have full authority to use any means necessary to stop their genocide campaign." Chen saluted. "Understood, Madam President." "What about the Galactic Council?" "Ambassador Torres is addressing them now. They're not happy with our decision to act independently, but several member species have privately expressed support for our actions." The communication shifted to show Ambassador Maria Torres, the Admiral's sister, standing before the Galactic Council. The council chamber was a huge dome filled with representatives from dozens of alien species. Most of them looked nervous. "Honored council members," Ambassador Torres was saying, "humanity asks for your support in stopping this atrocity. The Void hegemony has committed genocide against the Kithara people. If we do nothing, they will continue killing innocent beings across the galaxy." The response was predictable. The council chairman, a tall alien with 4 arms and purple skin, spoke in a bored voice. "The human delegation is reminded that military action requires council approval. Unauthorized warfare violates galactic law." Ambassador Torres looked directly at the camera. "With respect, Chairman, some things are more important than law. Justice, mercy, the protection of innocence. Humanity will act with or without council approval." The debate continued, but Admiral Chen stopped watching. He had heard enough political talk. It was time for action. "All ships," Chen broadcast on the fleet frequency. "This is Admiral Chen. In 6 hours, we jump for the Kithara system. Our mission is simple. Stop the hegemony, save any survivors we can find, and make sure this never happens again." He paused, then continued in a voice that carried across space to every human ship. "I know many of you are not professional soldiers. You're miners, traders, explorers, even tourists. But today you're all warriors. Today you represent the best of what humanity can be. The galaxy is watching to see what we'll do when innocent people need our help." Chen looked out at his fleet, the largest, strangest, most determined military force in human history. The hegemony thinks they can commit genocide, and nobody will stop them. They think we're just primitive apes who don't matter. Let's show them how wrong they are. Across the fleet, thousands of human voices answered as one. "Yes, sir." In 6 hours, they would jump into hell itself. But they would not go alone, and they would not go quietly. The children of Earth were going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The final battle above the Kithara homeworld lasted 18 hours. By the end, space itself seemed to burn with the fury of 2 civilizations in total war. The debris field where Admiral Chen had chosen to make his stand was now a graveyard of ships from both fleets. Chen stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. His plan was working, but the price was terrible. More than half his fleet was gone. Good ships and better people all dead in the service of strangers they had never met. But they were winning. The Void hegemony's perfect formation had been shattered. Their disciplined battle lines had dissolved into chaos as human ships struck from every direction, using tactics that made no sense to any civilized species. "Admiral," Torres reported, blood running down his face from a head wound. "The Dominion's fist is moving toward the planet. They're positioning for orbital bombardment." Chen looked at the massive enemy flagship on his screen. Hegemon Vrelthak was making his final move. If he couldn't defeat the human fleet in open battle, he would complete the genocide of the Kithara people. Every remaining crystal city would be turned to dust, every survivor killed from orbit. "How many ships do we have left that can still fight?" Chen asked. Commander Park answered from her position at the tactical station. 17 ships with combat capability, sir. But most of them are damaged. Chen studied the display. 17 ships against the most powerful warship in hegemony space. The Dominion's fist was 3 kilometers of armor and weapons, with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. It should have been impossible. But Chen remembered something Captain Rodriguez had told him once, back during the Centauri War. Impossible just means nobody's been stubborn enough to try it yet. All ships, Chen broadcast to his remaining fleet. This is Admiral Chen. The enemy flagship is moving to complete the genocide. We can't let that happen. He paused, looking around his damaged bridge at the faces of his crew. They were exhausted, wounded, some of them barely conscious. But they were all still fighting. I know this looks hopeless, Chen continued. Our ships are damaged, our ammunition is low, and we're facing the most powerful warship in the galaxy. But I want you to remember something. We're not fighting for conquest or glory. We're fighting for every innocent being who can't fight for themselves. On the converted freight hauler Lucky Strike, Captain Park listened to the Admiral's words while her engineering team worked frantically to repair her damaged engines. Her ship looked like it had been through a meat grinder, armor plates hanging loose, weapon systems sparking, half her crew in the medical bay. Captain, Lieutenant Brady said quietly, the engines are at 30% power. Life support is failing. Maybe we should evacuate to one of the refugee ships. Park looked through the viewport at the Dominion's fist. The massive warship was already beginning its bombardment of the Kythera homeworld below. She could see the flashes of weapons fire, the glow of crystal cities dying under enemy guns. In her cargo hold, the Kythera survivors were huddled together, their crystal bodies dim with fear. Some of them were children who had never known anything but war and death. They looked at her with eyes full of trust, believing that somehow she could save them. No, Park said firmly. We're not evacuating. We're finishing this. Admiral Chen's voice continued over the fleet communication channel. The Dominion's fist thinks it's safe because it's too big to kill with conventional weapons. But we're not conventional, are we? We're humans. We're Deathworlders. We don't know how to quit. Chen activated his private channel to speak directly to the other ship captains. There were only 16 other voices that answered, all that remained of the hundreds who had started this battle. Here's what we're going to do, Chen said calmly. We're going to ram that bastard with everything we have left. All ships, all at once. Even if it kills us, we'll crack that hull open and show the galaxy that genocide has consequences. There was silence for a moment. Then one by one the voices answered. Morrison here. The Vigilant is with you, Admiral. Park here. The Lucky Strike is ready. Hayes here. The Titan Breaker is loaded with mining explosives. Let's see how they like that. One by one, all 17 voices confirmed. They were all going to die, and they all knew it. But they were going to take the Dominion's fist with them. Aboard the Hegemony flagship, Hegemon Vralthak watched the human ships begin their final approach with a mixture of anger and confusion. The humans had lost most of their fleet. Their remaining ships were damaged almost beyond repair, and they were still attacking his invincible dreadnought. My lord, his tactical officer said nervously, the human ships are on a collision course. All of them. Vralthak laughed bitterly. Of course they are. These mad apes would rather die than admit defeat. Very well, destroy them all. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the hegemony. The Dominion's fist opened fire with every weapon it had. The space around the approaching human ships filled with energy beams and missiles. The human formation should have been wiped out in seconds. But the humans had learned something during their long war. How to survive in hell. The 17 ships didn't approach in a neat formation that could be easily targeted. They came in a complex pattern, using the debris from the earlier battle as cover, employing every trick they had learned fighting in the most dangerous environments in human space. Captain Morrison's destroyer Vigilant was the first to break through the enemy fire. Her hull was burning and her engines were failing, but she kept coming. At the last moment, Morrison activated his ship's self-destruct system and rammed the Dominion's fist at full speed. The explosion opened a crack in the massive warship's armor. It wasn't much, just a small wound on a giant, but it was enough. Captain Hayes followed seconds later, his mining barge Titan Breaker loaded with every explosive he could find. When his ship hit the same spot where Morrison had struck, the crack became a hole. Atmosphere began venting from the enemy flagship's hull. This is for the children, Hayes transmitted as his ship disappeared in a ball of fire. One by one, The human ships sacrificed themselves against the Dominion's fist. Each impact made the damage worse. Each explosion weakened the massive warship's structure. What had started as pinpricks became serious wounds. Captain Park brought the Lucky Strike in last, her engines screaming as she pushed them past their safety limits. Her ship was falling apart around her, but she kept flying. In her cargo hold, the Kythera survivors sang a soft crystal song, a lament for the brave humans who were dying to save them. "Lieutenant Brady," Park said quietly, "initiate evacuation protocols. Get everyone to the escape pods. What about you, Captain?" Park looked at the Dominion's fist growing larger in her viewport. The enemy ship was wounded but still massive, still deadly. It would take everything she had to finish this. Someone has to fly the ship, Brady understood. He gathered the crew and the Kythera refugees, loading them into every escape pod the Lucky Strike had. As they evacuated, Park sat alone on her bridge thinking about her quiet retirement that would never come. "This is Park to Admiral Chen," she transmitted. "The Lucky Strike is making our final run. It's been an honor serving with you, sir." Chen's voice came back full of emotion. "The honor was mine, Captain." "Give them hell." Park smiled as she aimed her ship at the weakest point in the enemy's armor. "My pleasure, Admiral." The Lucky Strike hit the Dominion's fist like a guided missile, her cargo hold full of mining explosives and reactor fuel. The explosion lit up space like a new sun, and when the light faded, the mighty Hegemony flagship was breaking apart. Admiral Chen watched from his own damaged ship as the Dominion's fist began to die. Secondary explosions rippled through the massive vessel as its power systems overloaded. The ship that had been the symbol of Hegemony power for a century was coming apart at the seams, but the battle wasn't over yet. Chen's flagship, the Indomitable, was the last human ship still capable of fighting. Her weapons were mostly gone, her hull was cracked, and her crew was down to a handful of volunteers. But she was still flying. "Torres," Chen said to his communications officer, "send a message to the remaining Hegemony ships." "Yes, sir." "What should I tell them?" Chen looked at the tactical display. Most of the enemy fleet was retreating, but a few ships were still trying to continue the bombardment of the Kythera homeworld. They seemed to think they could complete their mission despite losing their flagship. "Tell them this. Any ship that fires on the planet will be destroyed. Any ship that surrenders will be allowed to leave. Any ship that tries to harm the survivors will face the full wrath of humanity." The message went out across all frequencies. For a moment there was silence. Then one by one the remaining Hegemony ships began to retreat. They had seen enough of human fury for one day. But Hegemon Vralthak wasn't finished. The ancient warlord had survived the destruction of his flagship and was now commanding from a heavy cruiser. His voice came over the communication channel, full of rage and disbelief. "Human Admiral," Vralthak snarled, "you have destroyed my fleet, killed my soldiers, ruined my perfect conquest. But you cannot have victory. Even if you defeat me, the Hegemony will send more fleets. We will hunt your species to extinction." The news of humanity's first victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On every civilized world, beings watched the battle recordings with amazement and fear. The humans had not just defeated the Void Hegemony, they had crushed them using tactics that made no sense to any other species. But the victory came with a terrible price. Captain Rodriguez was dead, along with hundreds of other brave humans who had given their lives to save strangers. Admiral Chen stood in the medical bay of his flagship, looking at the survivors of the battle, men and women with burns, broken bones, and haunted eyes. They had seen things that would give them nightmares for years. "Admiral," Dr. Patel said quietly, "we've identified the bodies from the Righteous Fury. Captain Rodriguez, there wasn't much left to recover." Chen nodded silently. Elena Rodriguez had been a good officer and a better person. She had died to save people she had never met, from a species that wasn't even human. That was the kind of person she had been. "What about the Kythera survivors?" Chen asked. "We have over 3,000 in the refugee ships. They're physically okay, but..." Dr. Patel shook his head. "They've been through hell, Admiral. They've watched their entire civilization die. Some of them may never recover." Chen walked through the refugee areas where the surviving Kythera were being cared for by human medics and volunteers. The crystal beings looked broken, their beautiful forms cracked and dimmed with grief. But when they saw Chen, many of them reached out to touch him with their fragile hands. "Thank you," whispered an elderly Kythera named Silandra, who had been a teacher before her world died. You came for us. Nobody has ever come for us before. Chen knelt beside her, careful not to damage her delicate crystal body. We came because it was right. No one should have to face genocide alone. Silandra's eyes glowed softly. The younglings speak of you as the guardian warriors from the death world. They say you're the protectors that their mothers sang about in ancient stories. Chen didn't know what to say to that. He wasn't a legend or a guardian. He was just a soldier doing his job. But looking at the surviving Cathara children, he understood why they needed to believe in protectors. They had lost everything else. We're not done yet, Chen told Silandra. The hegemony still has more ships. They'll be back. We know, the old teacher said sadly. But now we have hope. For the first time since the metal death ships came, we have hope. Chen left the refugee area and returned to his command center. The tactical situation was grim. The hegemony had pulled back to their forward base in the Nexus system, but intelligence reports showed them gathering a much larger fleet. They were bringing ships from across their empire, along with their most experienced commanders. Admiral, Torres reported, we're receiving priority communications from Earth. President Kim wants to speak with you. The president appeared on screen, but she looked different than before. Older, more tired, but also more determined. Behind her, Chen could see the Emergency War Council in session. Marcus, the whole galaxy is talking about your victory, but I'm hearing reports that the hegemony is mobilizing their main fleet. That's correct, Madam President. Our estimates show at least 200 ships, including their flagship, the Dominion's Fist. That's more firepower than our entire fleet combined. President Kim was quiet for a moment. Marcus, I have to ask, can we win this? Chen thought about all the good people who had already died, about Captain Rodriguez who had sacrificed her life for strangers, about Captain Williams who had rammed his ship into an enemy cruiser to save Cathara refugees, about the hundreds of other heroes whose names would never be remembered. Madam President, I don't know if we can win, but I know we can't quit. If we stop now, the hegemony will finish killing the Kithra and move on to their next target. Maybe it will be us next time. What do you need? Everything, Madam President. Every ship, every weapon, every person who can fight. And I need them fast. The conversation ended and Chen turned to his staff. What's our current strength? Commander Park, who had survived the battle in her converted freight hauler, consulted her tablet. 87 combat-capable ships, including civilian vessels. About 12,000 personnel. We have ammunition for maybe 3 major engagements. And the hegemony? At least 200 ships, maybe more. All of them proper warships with experienced crews. Their flagship alone has more firepower than our entire fleet. The numbers were terrible, but Chen had been in hopeless situations before. During the Centauri War, he had won battles against impossible odds by refusing to fight the way his enemies expected. The hegemony is making the same mistake they made in our first battle, Chen told his staff. They're thinking like conquerors, not like warriors. They want to win quickly and impressively, to scare the rest of the galaxy into submission. What's our advantage? Park asked. We're not trying to conquer anybody. We're trying to save people. That makes us desperate. And desperate people fight harder than confident people. Chen called together all his ship captains for a strategy meeting. They gathered in the main hangar bay of his flagship. Military officers, corporate executives, mining foremen, and freight hauler captains. They were a strange group, but they all had the same look in their eyes. Determination. The hegemony is coming with everything they have, Chen told them. They want to crush us so completely that nobody else will ever dare to challenge them. They're treating this like a demonstration, not a war. Captain Morrison of the destroyer Vigilant raised his hand. Admiral, what's our battle plan? Chen smiled grimly. We're going to give them the biggest, bloodiest demonstration in galactic history. But not the kind they're expecting. The plan Chen outlined was madness. Instead of trying to match the hegemony's firepower, the human fleet would scatter across 3 star systems. They would force the enemy to divide their forces, then hit them with everything from asteroid bombardments to suicide attacks. This isn't about winning a fair fight, Chen explained. This is about making the hegemony pay such a high price that they'll think twice before committing genocide again. Captain Hayes of the mining barge Titan Breaker looked confused. Admiral, that sounds like we're planning to lose. We might lose, Chen admitted. But if we make them bleed enough, if we show the galaxy that somebody will fight for innocent people, then our deaths will mean something. The meeting broke up with the captains returning to their ships. They had 3 days to prepare before the hegemony fleet arrived. 3 days to turn civilian vessels into weapons of war, to train volunteers for combat, and to say goodbye to the people they loved. Captain Park spent those days working with her engineering team to modify her ship. The Lucky Strike was old and slow, but she was tough. They welded more armor to her hull and mounted every weapon they could find. She wouldn't win any beauty contest, but she would fight. "Captain," Lieutenant Brady said, "I've been thinking about what happens to the Cathera if we lose this battle." Park looked at the refugees in her cargo hold. They were helping with ship maintenance, their delicate crystal hands surprisingly good at detailed work. They didn't complain or ask for special treatment. They just wanted to help the humans who had saved them. "Then we make sure we don't lose," Park said simply. The hegemony fleet arrived exactly when intelligence predicted. It was a terrifying sight. Over 200 warships in perfect formation, led by the massive dreadnought Dominion's Fist. The flagship was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons and armor, carrying enough firepower to destroy a planet. Hegemon Vralthak commanded the fleet from his throne room aboard the Dominion's Fist. He was ancient by hegemony standards. Having conquered 17 species during his career, he had never lost a major battle, and he didn't intend to start now. "Report," he commanded as tactical officer. "The humans have scattered their forces across 3 systems, my lord. Their ships are hiding in asteroid fields and behind planets. They're not forming proper battle formations," Vralthak made a disgusted sound. "Cowards. They know they cannot face us in honest combat, so they resort to ambush tactics. Very well. We will hunt them down like the vermin they are." But the hegemon had misunderstood the situation completely. The humans weren't hiding because they were afraid. They were preparing to fight the only way they knew how, like predators from a death world. The first engagement happened when a hegemony squadron found Captain Morrison's destroyer group hiding in an asteroid field. The enemy ships moved in for an easy kill, expecting the humans to run or surrender. Instead, the asteroids around them exploded. The humans had spent 3 days mining the asteroid field with nuclear charges. When the hegemony ships entered the trap, Morrison detonated the entire field at once. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. 6 hegemony cruisers were destroyed instantly. 3 more were crippled. Morrison's destroyer was also caught in the blast, but her crew had evacuated to hidden escape pods scattered throughout the asteroids. "This is Morrison to all human ships," his transmission echoed across space. "Phase 1 complete. The bastards are angry now." The battle spread across 3 star systems as the hegemony fleet tried to hunt down the scattered human forces. But everywhere they went, they found traps. Mining barges that looked abandoned suddenly opened fire with industrial lasers. The human fleet jumped into the Cathera system like an angry storm. Admiral Chen had divided his forces into 3 groups: the main battle fleet, the rescue ships, and the reconnaissance force. Each group had a job to do, and each group was ready to die doing it. Captain Lisa Park commanded the reconnaissance force from her converted freight hauler, the Lucky Strike. Her ship wasn't beautiful or fast, but it was tough. The engineers at Proxima Station had welded armor plates to her hull and mounted weapons on every available surface. She looked like a flying junkyard, but she could fight. Park's job was to scout the outer system and look for Cathara survivors while the main fleet engaged the hegemony ships. She had 12 other converted civilian vessels with her, all commanded by volunteers who had never fought a space battle before. "This is Park to all reconnaissance ships," she broadcast. "Remember, we're not here to win glory. We're here to save lives. If you find survivors, protect them. If you find hegemony ships, avoid them unless they're threatening civilians. Our job is search and rescue, not heroics." Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Brady, was a former corporate security officer who had volunteered when the war started. He pointed at the sensor display. "Captain, I'm reading wreckage everywhere. Looks like Cathera civilian ships." Park looked at the screen and felt sick. The outer system was full of debris from destroyed vessels. The hegemony had been busy since their first attack. They weren't just conquering the Cathara homeworld. They were hunting down every survivor who tried to escape. "Take us closer to that debris field," Park ordered. Maybe someone survived. As the Lucky Strike moved through the wreckage, Park saw the remains of what had once been a beautiful Cathara passenger liner. The ship was broken in half, its crystal hull shattered like glass. Bodies floated in space: men, women, children, all dead. Captain. Brady's voice was tight with anger. The escape pods are gone. The hegemony took the survivors. Park closed her eyes for a moment. She had seen death before, but this was different. This was murder, pure and simple. The hegemony wasn't just conquering, they were enjoying the killing. Keep scanning, she told Brady. Someone might still be alive out here. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen's main battle fleet was approaching the inner system. The hegemony had left a powerful force to guard their conquest, 20 heavy cruisers and a massive dreadnought called the Dominions, Fist. The enemy ships were spread out around the Cathara homeworld like a steel. Net Chen studied the tactical display on his flagship's bridge. The hegemony formation looked impressive, but he could see weaknesses. The enemy ships were positioned to defend against a traditional fleet attack, the kind that most alien species would use. But humans had learned warfare on a world where traditional tactics got you killed. Communications, Chen ordered. Patch me through to all ship captains. Hundreds of faces appeared on screens around the bridge. There were professional military officers, but also mining foremen, corporate executives, and freight hauler captains. They were all looking at him with the same expression, ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. Listen up, Chen said. The hegemony is expecting us to attack in neat formations, ship against ship, like a traditional space battle. They've never fought humans before, so they don't know how we really fight. He smiled grimly. We're not going to give them a fair fight. We're going to give them a human fight. The plan Chen outlined would have horrified most alien military commanders. Instead of forming battle lines, the human ships would scatter and attack from all directions. Mining ships would use their drilling lasers to cut through enemy armor. Corporate security vessels would ram enemy ships at full speed. Even the smallest civilian ships would target weak points and sensor arrays. It was chaos. It was insane. It was pure human warfare. Remember, Chen concluded, we're not trying to conquer anybody. We're trying to save the Cathara and stop a genocide. Fight smart, fight dirty, and fight like your lives depend on it. Because they do. The first engagement happened when a hegemony patrol found one of Park's rescue ships. The civilian vessel, a converted tourist liner called the New Horizon, was evacuating survivors from a hidden Cathara base on an asteroid. The enemy cruiser moved in for an easy kill. Captain Williams of the New Horizon had been running luxury tours of the outer colonies until 3 days ago. Now he was facing a warship 10 times the size of his converted liner. His ship had light weapons and improvised armor. The hegemony cruiser had enough firepower to destroy a city. This is hegemony vessel Death's Edge, came the transmission. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Williams looked at the 50 Cathara refugees in his cargo hold. They were families, parents holding children, elderly couples supporting each other. They looked at him with hope in their crystal eyes. This is Captain Williams of the New Horizon, he replied calmly. Go to hell. The Death's Edge opened fire, but Williams was already moving. Instead of trying to run or fight back conventionally, he did something no hegemony commander would expect. He flew directly at the enemy ship. The New Horizon was built to carry tourists safely through asteroid fields and solar storms. Her hull could take incredible punishment. Williams pushed his engines to maximum power and aimed for the cruiser's main weapon. Are you insane? Lieutenant Brady's voice came over the radio from the Lucky Strike. You can't ram a ship that big. Watch me, Williams replied. The New Horizon hit the Death's Edge at 3/4 the speed of light. The impact destroyed Williams' ship completely, but it also crippled the hegemony cruiser. The enemy vessel's main weapons were gone, its engines dead, its hull cracked open to space. Captain Park arrived minutes later to find the cruiser drifting helplessly. Her boarding teams found the hegemony crew dead or unconscious. More importantly, they found the Cathara survivors Williams had died protecting, safe in an armored section of his ship. Word of Williams's sacrifice spread through the human fleet like wildfire. The hegemony had expected surrender or retreat. Instead, they got a lesson in human determination. The main battle began 2 hours later when Admiral Chen's fleet reached the inner system. The hegemony commanders were confident. Their ships were larger, more advanced, and had more firepower. They outnumbered the humans 2-1. But the humans didn't fight like any enemy the hegemony had ever faced. Instead of forming battle lines, the human ships scattered like a school of fish attacked by a shark. Mining barges accelerated toward enemy vessels, using their massive cargo doors as shields. Corporate security ships worked in packs, targeting the same enemy vessel from different angles. Even small patrol boats became deadly when they attacked in swarms. Commander Vexhai of the hegemony cruiser Bone Crusher watched in confusion as a human mining barge approached his ship. The vessel was huge but slow, covered in industrial equipment instead of proper weapons. It should have been easy prey. Then the mining barge opened fire with its mining lasers. The industrial cutting beams were designed to slice through solid rock and metal asteroids. Against the Bone Crusher's armor, they cut like knives through paper. Within minutes, Vexhai's ship was taking critical damage from weapons that weren't supposed to be weapons at all. "Return fire," Vexhai ordered. "Destroy that mining vessel!" But as his gunners targeted the barge, 3 human patrol ships attacked from behind. They were tiny compared to his cruiser, but they moved like hunting hawks, striking at weak points and retreating before he could respond. This was how humans had learned to fight on Earth, against creatures larger and stronger than themselves. They used speed, intelligence, and teamwork to bring down enemies that could kill them in single combat. Across the battlefield, the same pattern repeated. Hegemony ships that were designed to fight other warships found themselves facing opponents who ignored all the rules. Human captains used asteroids as cover, debris fields as weapons, and their own damaged ships as guided missiles. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding a destroyer called the Righteous Fury, led a squadron of corporate ships against the hegemony battleship Terror of Worlds. The enemy vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship, covered in weapons and armor. "This is Rodriguez to all ships," she broadcast. "That battleship is too big to kill with conventional weapons. We're going to have to get creative." Her plan was simple and suicidal. While the other ships distracted the battleship, Rodriguez would take the Righteous Fury directly into the enemy's engine section. Her ship's reactor would overload, creating an explosion powerful enough to cripple the larger vessel. "Captain," her first officer protested, "that's suicide." "We'll all die." Rodriguez looked at her crew. They were all volunteers, men and women who had joined the military to protect innocent people. They knew the risks when they signed up. "Maybe," Rodriguez said quietly, "but those Cathara children we rescued are still alive because Captain Williams was willing to die for them. Sometimes dying is the most important thing you can do." The attack began with the corporate ships drawing the battleship's fire. The Terror of Worlds was a killing machine, its weapons destroying 2 human vessels in the first minute of combat. But while it was focused on the larger targets, Rodriguez brought her destroyer in low and fast. The Righteous Fury's engine screamed as she accelerated toward the enemy battleship's vulnerable rear section.